Okay, so this number should honestly make you stop and think.
LendingTree pulled the data, and it turns out only 37.6% of households that don't already own a home can actually afford a starter home.
Not some big, beautiful forever home. A starter. The cheapest category of house there is. Nationwide, the average one runs about $200,000, and almost 2 out of 3 people who don't own a place right now can't make that work. And it gets even worse. LendingTree surveyed about 2,000 consumers, and 64% of Americans still believe buying a starter home is a realistic goal for them. So most people think the door's wide open, but the actual numbers say it's shut for the majority. That gap between what people believe and what's actually true matters. Now pull back even further. Out of 51 states plus DC, only 11 have a median home that the median earner can actually afford under the standard 30% rule. You know, the basic idea that your housing costs shouldn't eat more than 30% of your income. And all but one of those 11 states sit in the Midwest or the South. So think about what that really means if you don't own a home yet. In 40 out of 51 jurisdictions, the math is just flat out against you. The whole point of a starter home was that it was supposed to be the first step, the entry point, the way in, and now it locks out most of the people it was built for. That's a system that's broken at the foundation. But there are places where the numbers still add up, and that's exactly where we're going. If starter homes are out of reach across most of the country, where can you still actually buy one? And why do those places work? Let's start with the most extreme example, Mississippi. The average starter home in Mississippi costs $85,000. I know that sounds made up, but it's not. $85,000. To afford that, you need to make about $29,500 a year, and the median income for non-homeowners in the state sits around $38,800. So 61.8% of renter households can actually swing a purchase. Mississippi and West Virginia are the only 2 states left in the whole country where the average starter home is still under $100,000. $85,000. That's what people pay for a mid-range SUV, or 1 year of private college tuition, or a kitchen renovation in some coastal suburb. And in Mississippi, that buys you an entire house. But the reason it's that cheap is because incomes are that low and demand is that soft. The same economy that gives you an $85,000 house also puts a ceiling on what you can earn once you're there. So yeah, you're buying affordability, but you're paying for it with real economic trade-offs that you have to go in with your eyes open about. West Virginia tells a pretty similar story, just with slightly different numbers. The average starter home there runs $90,000, and 58% of non-homeowner households can afford one, making it the other state still hanging on below that $100,000 line. But the data can't tell you for either of these places whether they're actually building enough new homes to stay this affordable going forward. The picture on building activity just isn't clear from what's available. And that matters a lot because a low price tag is a snapshot. It tells you what things cost right now. It doesn't promise you anything about next year or the year after. So the question becomes, where is it cheap and likely to stay that way? And to answer that, you have to look at which states are actually putting up new houses. Which brings us to Indiana. And honestly, this is the state that quietly does everything right according to Realtor.com's analysis. Indiana ranks number 1 in the country on their affordability and home building scorecard. And the reason is almost boring, which is kind of the whole point. A median home in Indiana costs about $296,000, and that eats up 28.3% of the median household income, so it sneaks in just below the 30% threshold. The state's building permit to population ratio is 1.02, meaning it builds almost exactly in proportion to its people. Neither of those numbers is flashy, and neither one makes headlines, but together, they're quietly doing the heavy lifting. Realtor.com's analysis suggests that states performing steadily on both affordability and home building, like Indiana, actually outpace states that only dominate one side. Indiana won by being adequate at everything, rather than extreme at anything. Though new construction in Indiana carries a 40.5% premium over existing homes, so if you want or need something newly built, the price jumps fast. Now you might be wondering, okay, if Indiana is the most balanced overall, is there a state that's actually more affordable on a pure income to payment basis? And the answer is yes, Iowa. A median home in Iowa takes just 25.4% of the median income, which is the lowest share in the entire country. A quarter of your paycheck. Iowa ranks number 2 nationally with a grade A, and its affordability score is the highest of any state.
under those great numbers, Iowa's new construction premium is 56%. So a newly built home in Iowa costs 56% more than an existing one. And according to Realtor.com, that kind of gap tells you whether builders are serving first-time buyers or just putting up expensive stuff for people who already own. And in Iowa, the answer is pretty clear. The existing homes are affordable. The pipeline of what's being built is not. Builders there are building for move-up buyers, not for people trying to get their foot in the door. So what happens in 10 or 15 years when the current stock ages out and there's nothing affordable coming up behind it? Iowa works today, no question. But is anyone building the Iowa that works tomorrow? So if Iowa's builders are charging 56% more for new homes, you have to wonder, is there any state where new construction actually costs less than what's already standing? Most people would say, no way. New homes are always more expensive. That's just how it goes, right? Except in South Carolina, it doesn't go that way at all. South Carolina has a new construction premium of negative 5.7%, meaning new homes there cost 5.7% less than existing ones. In most of the country, new construction is the luxury tier. In South Carolina, it's actually the entry point. And that happens because South Carolina issues building permits at a rate of 1.96 relative to its population share. That's nearly double. The state is building at a volume that most of the Northeast can't even wrap its head around. And that volume is exactly what pushes prices down. When you've got builders competing at that scale, the buyer wins. That's the whole mechanism right there. States pumping out large volumes of competitively priced new housing actively create affordability instead of coasting on what they inherited from the past. Now, to be fair, South Carolina isn't cheap right now. A median home there takes 36.7% of income, which puts it above the 30% line. Its grade A ranking is really built on a forward-looking bet, the idea that all this building will eventually bring prices down. And that's a real tension. You're buying into a direction rather than present-day cheapness. And South Carolina isn't the only state doing this either. 4 others also have negative new construction premiums, including Idaho, California, Florida, and North Carolina. So if building is what protects affordability, which state is doing it on the biggest scale? Texas. Texas accounts for 14.6% of all building permits issued in the entire country, more than any other state. And it only has 9.3% of the population. Nearly 1 in every 7 building permits in America gets filed in Texas. That scale is both its superpower and its complication. The sheer volume keeps prices from running away relative to demand, and the new construction premium sits at a healthy 7.6%, meaning new homes are only a little more expensive than existing ones. So builders are genuinely serving people trying to get in for the first time. But Texas is also the priciest state on this whole tour. A median listing of $365,000 is a long, long way from Mississippi's $85,000. For a first-time buyer, Texas gives you opportunity and competition all at once. A market big enough that you can find something, but not cheap enough that you can relax about it. It's the big, dynamic, complicated option for someone who wants a growing economy and is willing to pay a bit more to be part of it. So these affordable states are building and holding the line. But is the overall picture getting better or getting worse? Are new states joining the affordable group, or is the crisis slowly creeping into the ones that still work? Take Kansas. Honestly, it's probably not the state most people picture when they imagine buying their first home. But look at the numbers. A median home there costs 27% of income, comfortably below the 30% threshold. A starter home runs about $125,000, and 52.3% of non-homeowner households can afford one. Kansas jumped 7 spots in Realtor.com's rankings, so the trend is actually moving the right direction. The weak spot is one you've probably already guessed by now. A permit to population ratio of 0.80 means Kansas is building less than its share would suggest. Its affordability is held up by existing stock, not new supply. The door's open, but Kansas isn't putting up houses fast enough to guarantee it stays that way. Still, that 7-spot jump does mean something. The affordable tier isn't frozen in place. Windows are opening in spots most people aren't even watching. So if you're a first-time buyer looking at all of this and thinking, what do I actually do with this information? Let's talk about the tools that already exist. FHA loans let you put down as little as 3.5% if your credit score is 580 or higher. Fannie Mae's Home Ready and Freddie Mac's Home Possible programs offer 3% down options for buyers who meet the income requirements.
A lot of states and counties also have down payment assistance programs, grants, forgivable loans, though what's available, how much you get, and the exact terms depend on where you are. And stay flexible on what kind of home you're looking at. Condos, townhouses, fixer-uppers, manufactured homes, they're all ways in. Co-buying with a partner or family member can help too, though you really need clear legal agreements before you go down that road. But Matt Schultz, the chief consumer finance analyst at LendingTree, said it like this. It's safe to say that most people don't get raises of $7,099 each year. That means that bridging that gap might require a side hustle, a second job, or other sacrifices. That's tough, however, especially with how many other demands people already have on their time. And that's the reality sitting underneath all the tools and programs. The low down payment options are there, the assistance programs exist, but none of that changes the map. And as Schultz also points out, deciding you're just not ready yet is itself a smart financial move. Renting while you get your finances in better shape might actually give you a better outcome than buying when you're stretched too thin. Realtor.com's analysis argues that more permissive zoning, streamlined permitting, and incentives for affordable new construction are the big policy levers, though they don't point to any specific reform case studies. And they warn that without real policy changes, the gap between the most affordable and least affordable markets is just going to keep getting wider. I think about this as a dad, honestly. When I look back at the 7 states we just walked through, each one is offering you a different deal. Mississippi sells you cheapness, but you pay for it with limited economic opportunity. Indiana sells you balance, but nobody's writing songs about it. South Carolina sells you a bet on building. None of them is a free lunch, not a single one. But for the first time in a generation, the biggest decision a first-time buyer makes is which state to be in. The starter home hasn't disappeared from America, but it has moved, and following it means you're choosing a home and a whole life along with it.